Welcome to More Than a Few Words, a marketing conversation for business owners. This is your host, Lorraine Ball, and this is another one of my What Went Wrong conversations. And I'm so excited that Nina Froriep decided she would come back and join me for this conversation and share what I think is a really great story about a great idea that didn't work and gave up too soon. Nina, welcome to the show.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me again. And I love the idea that you're having a show about what went wrong because we, especially as business owners, where there's so much iteration, so much just trying out stuff, I think we grow and learn the best when we learn from our mistakes.
Absolutely. And it's so much less painful to learn from somebody else's.
Yeah, that's true too. That's so true. Especially where we're in a world right now where, a lot of us are creating courses and figuring out how to, scale things and get new clients. So we're a lot more, we're experimenting a lot more than we only did maybe, 10 or even 20 years ago. I've been in business for nearly 30 with my company.
Mhm.
Um, but the one story that sort of sticks in my mind is when I was reinventing myself from being a film producer to doing what I do now, which is online coaching. And I dove, of course, into being a video coach because that is what I knew. I had this brilliant idea in parentheses, that I was going to create what I called a video assembly.
Mhm.
And it was going to be like, working with the clients up front on their scripts. And then there were like a whole bunch of them showing up in like 1 hour increments to a shoot day. And it was going to be brilliant because I was only going to pay for a crew once, but I was going to be able to service 5, 6, 7 clients in one day. And then we would go off and edit, and that was it. So a friend of mine was kind enough to help me recruit my first 5 or 6 people to do this assembly shoot. We did it in a conference room at WeWork. And I had with everybody a pre-call. We talked about content, we talked about scripts, and everything was super low budget. So I schlepped myself, into oblivion into this conference room at WeWork, set everything up. And as I'm setting up, I get a phone call. It's the first person that was supposed to show up. Oh, I'm running late. Can I come an hour later? I'm like, no, no, no. Your slot is from 10 to 11. You can't come at 11. I have another person at 11. Well, I can't make it at 10. I won't be there. So anyway, so I said, okay, I'll tech you on at the end of the day. I'm like, oh, geez. Um, you know, 10 minutes later, I get another phone call. So, those scripts that we talked about, I haven't really looked at them yet. So there's going to be a prompter, right? I'm like, no, this is like $100 kind of shoot kind of thing, down dirty cheap. You didn't want to pay for like, the full Megillah. So no, there's not going to be a teleprompter. Anyway, it went on the whole day. I got these phone calls from just people running around like chicken with their heads cut off. No one showed up on time, not one single person. But the miracle of miracles was that they all showed up at the correct wrong time. So I did get to shoot everybody. And it was,
I got to say, we just have to capture that expression, the correct wrong time.
but it was pulling teeth. It was pulling teeth. No one, I thought I was working, with mature adult business owners, but when it comes to their marketing, it's just a different ball game. Anyway, um, it was a very stressful day. Half of the videos were not usable, and that's saying being kind. I would say probably out of 6, I used 2. Um, and in the end, I gave up on the idea just because it seemed impossible to get there. Fast forward about 5 or 6 years, and my business partner sends me this link and says, look at this and don't scream. So I looked at the link and I screamed because there was a person killing it, apparently making shit ton loads of money, doing exactly my assembly model. I'm like, damn, I gave up on it way too soon. And it's just like, yes, you want to have that minimal viable product, but you also have to be willing to give it a couple of, not just one go, right? You have to give it a couple of goes. You have to iterate. I was probably way too early
Mhm.
with my idea. Like this was in 2018. And yeah, so now someone else is very happy with that idea. I'm sure they came up with the idea themselves, and I'm happy for them. I'm happy with what I'm doing now, but I just, there's a little like, yeah, should have stuck it out longer.
So, if as you look back on that experience and kind of scheduling all of that, and you look at all the things that went wrong on that day, where do you think you might have done it differently? What other things could you have done to if you had done a second iteration that you might
Yeah.
have tried differently?
I think what I hadn't learned yet was that mature adults are not necessarily always acting as mature adults. Um, I think, and that is something I do today, is there was not enough emphasis on setting up my clients for success. One call to talk about what they want to shoot and work on scripts is not enough. Today, I would make that a 1 or even 2 month prerequisite course where they have to really, really dial into their messaging. They have to dial into their how they want to show up on camera, and so by the time we even schedule the shoot day, they are super ready, and I know that they've rehearsed their scripts, or they know their bullet points such that they can get through a script. So a lot more rehearsal time, a lot more mindset work,
Mhm.
and then you
Also
know,
what's
yeah,
interesting about that is that makes them put more skin in the game.
exactly.
One of the things when
What
you
else
said
I
these
want? Yeah,
mature adults, they weren't taking it maybe as seriously as they should because they didn't have a big investment. It didn't cost them a lot.
right,
But
right.
if in the trade-off is you can do it for this cheap price, but you have to do the pre-work. And if they don't do the pre-work,
They don't get to schedule it. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I had so many ideas. I was like, what we could do is just make this a monthly recurrence. And if
Mhm.
people are ready for, always the first Tuesday of the month, then they get to shoot. And if they're not ready, they have to wait another month or another 2 weeks or whatever,
Mm.
And yes, skin in the game. And it's just not just your dollars, it's also your time. Very often
Yeah.
I find that time is a much more valuable asset than money is,
Mhm.
especially if you're not like in the, early beginning stages of your business.
Yeah. So if and I love this story because I think it is such a good example of expecting more from your clients than they're ready to give you, than they're ready to do,
Yeah.
and then giving up on an idea that actually somebody could make money with, not necessarily you.
Yeah. It was a great idea. It was just the wrong time, and I didn't stick with it long enough. Yeah.
Well, and I really appreciate you sharing the story because I think it's a good reminder for all of us that I mean some great ideas or some things that we think are great ideas shouldn't be repeated, and some that flop gloriously. You have to step back and go, why? What did we do wrong, and
Mhm.
how do we do it different this
Yeah.
time?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had one where I was going to run a conference and it failed miserably. But 10 years later, I came back to the idea and thought, okay, I think I'm ready. And I was finally ready to look at what went wrong. And
Mhm.
I think that was the key for us making that second conference successful.
Yeah. Congratulations. Yeah, and sometimes an idea is just not it's not its day yet, right?
Mhm.
And I feel in those early days, I was still figuring out too much myself. Because,
Mhm.
I come from being a really big producer, we're talking $1 million budgets, and then standing there and charging people $150. I mean, that was a trial run, so that's why it was cheap. I mean, in the end, it would have probably been a $1,500 ticket
Mhm.
item or whatever it was. But I also did not have the confidence yet and the clarity on what needed to get done. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Nina, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Of course, my pleasure. I hope somebody somewhere learned something really valuable from it.
I'm sure they will. And if you've enjoyed this conversation, first off, you want to check out Nina at Clockwise Productions. You want to look for her on LinkedIn where she's not making a lot of mistakes and say hello. Tell her you saw her here. And if you've enjoyed the conversation and want to find other resources for your business, check out morethanafewwords.com. There you'll find hundreds of conversations just like this, workbooks, white papers, and so much more. This has been another episode of More Than a Few Words. Thanks for listening.